Is there a consensus agreement about the types of places we go to when we die? So, as outlined by author researcher Stafford Betty in a White Crow Books blog article, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the famous author of Sherlock Holmes fame, concluded at the end of his book called History of Spiritualism that, again, it's funny because we can go back in time here. It's the same arguments, same debates, same discussions. He's saying that he disagrees with the concept that there's all this contradictory information about where we go when we die, because when you delve into spirit communication, instead what we find is that there is a lot of consensus, a lot of agreement about where specifically we go and what the other side is like. And that's what I think is so exciting. It's not this subjective thing where everybody has their own idea and it seems to be coming out of people's imaginations. Instead, all the communication kind of points in this one direction. So today's video is a special request by one of the subscribers or supporters of this channel, who has asked me to look over Stafford Betty's article on White Crow Books and provide my analysis about it based upon my experiences doing astral projection work. And I will say Stafford Betty does an excellent job of chronicling what the afterlife is like, and he's also a contributor sometimes on the Afterlife Topics Facebook group. Every now and then he posts on there, but I definitely suggest his books and to check out his blog at White Crow Books, which is also the home of Michael Tim's blog. Overall, I mean, White Crow Books is one of the best resources, maybe if not the best resource for afterlife related information, maybe anywhere. So that's something to think about. Anyway, so this article is quite long. So presented are 50 different topics about what the other side is like. That's too long for me to get into in one video, so I am going to try to break it down, maybe just do the first 15 or maybe only do the first 10, and in a future video I will continue to explore this and then do the rest of the points. So this is kind of a collection of knowledge from different sources about what we can expect when we're on the other side. And okay, as Stafford says, let's look at a few of the many hundreds of otherworldly narratives that have accumulated over the last 160 years. They give a rough idea of what lies ahead, one that is far more plausible and backed by better evidence than anything provided by the world's various scriptures and theologies. The following claims by spirits strike me as the most important and interesting of the bunch. I'll restrict them to, I need 50. Most of these are covered in the conclusion of the book, The Afterlife Unveiled. That's Stafford Betty's book that goes into much more detail about these topics. So let's begin. Number one, and again, I'm going to provide my analysis based upon my experiences, which is just going to be my opinion, basically. So take that for what it's worth. It's not orthodoxy. It's just how, if I can relate to that based upon some of my own experiences where I am seemingly on that side. Number one, our present ideas about heaven and hell are illusionary. Hell is hellish, yes, but it's not a place of physical pain, nor is it everlasting, nor is it a place where there is not help, and heaven is not one place but a spectrum of worlds, stretching from the lowly joys of souls newly arrived to spheres of unimaginable bliss and perfection for souls more advanced. The afterworld is not some fantastic vision of infinity where souls are locked in poses of permanent rapture gazing at the face of God, and no one floats on a cloud while playing a harp. Rather, it is a place with landscapes and seas and houses and cities reminiscent of our own world. It is an objectively real and material world, but made of matter that is vibrating much more rapidly than our senses can pick up. There are gardens, universities, libraries, and hospitals for the newly dead, but no factories, fire stations, sanitary landfills, or smokestacks. There are no dirty jobs to do, we have no traffic, and our roads are covered with the thickest and greenest grass, as soft to the feet as a bed of fresh moss. It is on these that we walk, says the spirit of Hugh Benson, this, I assume, being Life in the World Unseen. Okay, first point. So do I agree with this? For the most part, yes. So what's being described here is what some people call a Summerland or upper astral environment, which is a constructed realm based upon consensus desires for what makes a beautiful place to exist. And of course, even in Jürgen Ziewe's books, he goes into these types of realms, and I do believe all of this is accurate, but I'd be hesitant to put too many limitations on what goes on in these astral environments, because we can't say across the board that there are no factories and smokestacks and unpleasant things and cockroaches and chewing gum on the ground, because there's different levels of the astral side, and there's areas that are, it's still a parallel dimension to this one, and yet it really starts to mimic this world in a lot of ways, including the less pleasant ways. And then there's the whole phenomenon of lower astral environments, which certainly can possess some of these negative elements as well. So yes, on higher levels, it's beautiful and pristine, and there's libraries and flowers that never die, and it's permanently sunshine and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But in my own experiences, I've also seen very urban environments which maybe wouldn't be as pleasant to the sensibilities of 1900s spiritualism. Not to say that that information is wrong at all. It's just I do think that the other side kind of evolves and adapts just like this side. Point 2. Oh, by the way, I totally forgot. You are watching Afterlife Topics of Metaphysics, where we talk about this kind of crazy stuff. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. And if you want to support this work and this discussion, this topic, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Afterlife Topics. As little as $3 a month will go a long way to help the channel out. Okay, had to do that quick PSA, so let's continue. Point number 2. The afterworld begins at the Earth's surface and extends outward. Earth is the nucleus of the entire world system that the spirits describe. The spirit world begins very near the Earth and extends millions of miles beyond it, writes the spirit of Leslie Stringfellow, a Texan who died at age 20. It surrounds yours on all sides like the atmosphere does the globe, and every nation has its counterpart in spirit, surrounding it in connection with that part. Over or nearest its earthly place of residence, many spirit communicators tell us that their world envelops and interpenetrates the physical world. A lot to say. I'm gonna get cotton mouth soon. I wish I had a bottle of water handy. This is a lot to cite. And point number 2, I completely agree with. So this is the description of what I've described in my books as the astral Earth, because just like this gentleman who's deceased is describing, our entire world and every single culture and city has this astral layer on top of it, which is very, it's very much the same culture, the same country that is superimposed on top of it. This is why there is an astral England, an astral China, an astral Pittsburgh, and an astral Straw, Texas. It doesn't, almost anywhere that there's people living on this side, they have developed their counterpart on that side, which may be a very ancient place indeed. So the astral counterpart to Italy, maybe you'll find presentations and lectures being performed by actual Roman emperors. And in many ways, and especially if you ask the people living on that side, theirs is the real version of the earth. Theirs is the real version of the cities and the cultures and the countries, whereas this is the impermanent, kind of crappy version. So this is the description of the, quote, astral Earth, perfectly described by this guy, Leslie Stringfellow. I don't know all the details about where this citation came from. Now, what about the afterworld begins at the Earth's surface and extends outward? Earth is the nucleus of the entire world system that the spirits describe. Yes and no, because we don't want to become so earth-centric. This is something that bothers me. I don't feel like there's any reason to suspect that just the earth is the afterlife or the areas around the earth, because I mean this galaxy alone has billions of stars and potentially tens of millions of civilizations, in my opinion. And when one is living on that side, I mean, there's nothing stopping somebody from going off to explore the greater universe, right? So I'm a little bit hesitant to support a narrative that Earth is the center of everything, but that might not be even what they really meant. Point 3, spirit realms vary from culture to culture. Stringfellow described what he called foreign trips. We went yesterday, Stringfellow says, for the first time to a part of the spirit world occupied by the Turkish people and Hindus. Yeah, just like here, why not? And again, isn't it kind of redundant to even be calling people living on that side spirits? It's just people, and there's Turkish people, there's Hindu people, there's Egyptian people, there's Chinese people, there's Aztec people, and it's superimposed over this world. It's the same world essentially on a higher level, and if you want to be a tourist, you can be a tourist. Now, some people, they just stick to their one niche existence, and then they never explore. But that's not how I am. That's why I'm in Vietnam right now, and I'm on the way to India, because I always enjoy new cultures and different people from different cultures, different backgrounds. But some people don't like that, so they just stick to their one realm. Like if I had any criticism about that book Life in the World Unseen by Hugh Benson, Monsieur Hugh Benson, it's that it's only like this one pastoral English-looking environment where it's never nighttime, and it's the grass is always green, and it's the typical Summerland description. Because where is that sense of adventure to want to go explore where the Turkish people are or where the Chinese people are, or any culture like that? But to each their own. Not everybody is like me. Not everybody has that desire to travel and be an adventurer. Some people, they just want to stick to their one little area and then never leave it. So that's for some people, but it's important to point out, to people like me, that no one is constricted. So in my astral experiences, not so much this time around, but in the past, I would often have experiences even in the places I was traveling to. So I might go out of my body and see what it looks like in astral Prague. Did that a few times. Astral London, astral Japan. Just some examples. So certainly there's a great variety, and like here we have the freedom to be tourists, and it's really just like here. This goes on. Nor should we shouldn't expect, like, for example, Sunni and Shia Muslims to be living comfortably side by side in the same sector of the afterlife, or Han Chinese entrepreneurs and Tibetan peasants. So that's kind of the flip side to this. Just like here, people take a lot of their prejudices with them, and you probably won't be seeing Israelis and Palestinians, seeing kumbaya in the normal astral level. In fact, a lot of these tensions and problems, I'm sorry to say, still exist. I've had astral experiences where I decided just to turn on the TV and watch the news, and I came to find exactly like this is being pointed out. There's still, unfortunately, problems like this. Next point, physical violence is not possible in the afterlife, though. But old habits of mutual suspicion and animosity do not disappear just because we die. Progress takes time both here and over there. Yes, because we have free will. And so we don't have some higher consciousness entity coming in and just deciding for us what level of progress we're at. When I always criticize mixed spirituality, the idea that you just die and you become an all-knowing being, or you just merge with God and disappear into that and become God again. That's not the way the afterlife works. I had a video about this a few videos back, although I took it down because I was getting way too much negative feedback. But some of those ideas, I think, are heavily rooted in people's expectations that all problems will be removed when they go to the other side. Whereas what spirits tell us is, don't get your hopes up, but you yourself can be the antidote to these problems by not having those issues yourself and being an example for other people and making the universe into a nicer place. So some of these issues don't go away, but you can be the solution. Then there was the point, physical violence is not possible in the afterlife. That's a crazy idea. Is that true? And it's going to be controversial, but I'm going to have to disagree. I would say physical violence doesn't operate the same way because your body can quickly reform itself. But I definitely don't believe that physical violence can happen because the astral body is still physical enough that if somebody assaults you, it might, you might not have long-term damage. You might not become brain damaged or in a wheelchair, but you can feel pain and you can end up maybe temporarily incapacitated or, in various negative situations if somebody chooses to inflict violence against you. Now, I've had some experiences, one where I've willingly been in fights, and I've also had a couple of experiences of being attacked by what I would consider to be troublemakers or people on that side trying to stir the pot. And there was one experience where somebody released these little mechanical insects, and they were biting and attacking people, and people were screaming and hiding. And this was in Astral Phoenix, Arizona. And then the police basically came and arrested this person for doing that. And then I took one of these little mechanical insects back home with me and discovered it had the ability to replicate itself and continue to attack and try to bite me, and I had to lock it in my garage. That's one example. So we can't be naive to think that hostile forces cannot exist, but it's a very different system than here because we don't have that permanence that we suffer from here on the mortal plane. Wow, so I don't think I'm even going to get to 10. Let's see. Point 4. Earth's slow vibrations dumb down our ability to sense the presence of spirit, including the divine. A quickened vibration such as we find in the afterworld, or what we shall call the astral, greatly increases one's sensitivity to spirit. The divine is no closer to the astral world than to our own, but spirits can discern or use or intuit the divine more cleanly. Raising a vibration, raising a dimensional spectrum brings us closer to, first of all, we have much heightened mental powers. We can do things like be in multiple places at once, teleport, stuff that for them is completely normal and they take for granted, but to us would make us go think that they're supreme beings. But in reality, for them, it's just like bilocating, being in two places at once, or teleporting to China to try out some Chinese tea. That's called a Sunday afternoon, so it's nothing. So given that heightened power where the vibration the density is different, where we are closer to, I guess what you would call God consciousness, even if it's only a little bit closer, it gives us that interconnected ability, which allows us to do things like communicate telepathically and feel other people in ways that we don't necessarily do here, even if the things blocking us here is very much an illusion. Point 5. The newly dead are thoroughly themselves when they pass. Their personalities and habits and character, for better or worse, are completely intact. Nothing miraculous happens to them when they pass. Their astral body is not a, quote, resurrected body, but was always present as the soul's inner envelope while embodied in earthly flesh. Once the physical body dies, the inner body quite naturally becomes the outer, as a snake's inner skin becomes the outer skin. Once it sheds the old, there is nothing miraculous about the process of surviving death. I would agree. I would say, in my situation, I know that all the time that inner body sheds itself like a snake all the time and is hanging out on that side. So, and then comes back here. So there's a lot of flexibility there that some people don't realize. So they don't realize that you can be asleep here and being in your astral body there, and then in a split second that both bodies might be interconnected back here when you wake up again. So it's not like when you die it's your first time on that side. It's the first time that the astral body is being used on that side. But when you die, you will finally have full control, and all of your mental abilities will be joined together. You won't be split between two dimensions anymore. You'll be wholly and fully on that side, which will make being there as real as this environment is. Whereas here on this side, the best we can do is have these kind of short-lasting, sometimes confusing experiences where we appear on that side, but we don't have the full power of our senses necessarily. Sometimes it gets mixed up with dream consciousness, all these problems, because more of our consciousness is here in this world. So when you die, basically your consciousness just joins back with itself. Let's see. So natural is the process of dying that many souls do not realize at first they have died. One spirit said, I groped my way as if through passages before I knew I was dead. And even when I saw people that I knew were dead, I thought they were only visions, hallucinations. That is because the difference in appearance between the physical and astral side is relatively slight. So is the difference, as we've seen, between the new world they've entered and the old one left behind. So again, I definitely agree with this point, because if you took just like a snapshot of their side, sometimes it would look just like this side, but it's the devil's in the details. So if you're having actual experience on that side, then you might see just how different it can really be. Point 7. When spirits first come over, they tend to spend some time in a memory world of their own making. The things they think about seem like vivid realities rather than dreams. They might live with these self-created hallucinations for quite a while before they break free of their trance. The spirit of Frederick Myers, co-founder of the SPR, described a steamy sexual encounter between two spirits who share an earth dream and yearn for gross sensation. They obtain it in abundance, and there follow a horrible satiation, and they find it extraordinarily difficult to escape from those who share these pleasures with. More typical or comforting hallucinations arising out of memories of home. Eventually or rapidly, most souls, depending on their readiness, leave these hallucinations behind and move into the objectively real world described above. Others, described by one spirit as being very infant souls, linger for a long time. They can enjoy banquets or even smoke a cigar. So, going into some kind of weirder territories here. So the final point, I don't know what this stuff is about. Okay, yeah, anyone can enjoy banquets or smoke cigars. I don't know if that was in relation to the hallucination state or the real astral state. But if you just scroll up and we learn about the astral equivalence of all of the cultures and how it's a real physical material place, it doesn't really matter. You can eat food and enjoy cigars anywhere you are. That's not limited to just the hallucination state or the actual afterlife state, because I have done those things. I have smoked cigars in astral experiences with other people, and I would say that the taste or the flavor of the experience almost more vivid than here, right? So if I can remember like this unfiltered cigarette I smoked for fun on an astral experience, I remember how that sucker tasted even right now. And I'm not a smoker, so maybe that's why, because I'm not used to doing that kind of thing. But if I'm out of my body, I'm not too worried about getting lung cancer in my astral body. So that's why I might indulge in something like that if I'm out of my body. Whereas here, probably won't see me smoking any cigarettes. Anyway, so what's the main point here? When spirits first come over, they tend to spend some time in a memory world of their own making. So, I don't know. I don't think that this always happens. We don't want to, so I found some of the work of the channeled Frederick Myers to be, I don't know, a bit skewed, I guess. I do think it's valuable work, but I don't attach all my data about the other side to Frederick Myers. But I also think a really important point is being made here. So I think sometimes this happens where people find out that they can enter a fantasy world that's not objective. And this is something I've actually talked about a lot on the forum, and something I've written quite a bit about. I think I've mentioned this a few times in my books, that the subjective inner fantasy world, it doesn't hold a candle to the objective world. Okay, when you're in a subjective, literally a lucid dream state, and so many of us have experienced this, so this isn't some woo-woo topic here. This is something that we experience if we do lucid dreaming. These subjective states, it doesn't hold a candle to objective experience. The people you meet are constructions of your own mind. They're not real people. They are figments of your own consciousness. And if you spend considerable time in one of these types of worlds, it's somebody who's mature is going to be like, I miss real people. I miss the joy of making real connections with people. There's going to be this profound kind of loneliness. And, I think that people can sometimes share these types of dreamscapes or lucid dreams. And, it's kind of like, I don't know, it almost reminds me a little bit of the film Inception, right? Like, is that, in fact, actually the film Inception perfectly illustrates the subjective realm. But yes, you can maybe even go into it with a group of other real people, but the whole world around you is built through your higher self, your subconscious. And it can be impressive and look real, but it's not real. And really, it's not healthy to be caught in that kind of place. I could do a whole series of videos about this. I'm just trying to run through these topics real quick. But I think that people who die, they realize that they can literally like fall asleep on that side and enter into a lucid dream space. But instead of waking up from it, now it's up to you. So in this world, we have physicality to where if we're dreaming, if we're having a lucid dream, the alarm is going to ring and we're going to be snapped out of it. But what happens if you have the ability to go into a lucid dream and you don't have to get out of it? Well, I think people whose souls are a bit broken and they just desperately want to fulfill fantasies, they might go into those types of places and then not leave. And I hear it's a problem. I hear it's something that people have to basically rescue people out of. The friends, family, loved ones, instead of being in the big, vibrant, astral version of Earth, where there's so many possibilities and stuff to do, they find themselves just, their friends, family, or loved ones, somebody may find themselves in that state, and they're almost inaccessible. And that's a big problem. Imagine it's like, well, Grandpa, we don't see him anymore because he just exists in a subjective dream space, in a demiplane. And that's a big problem. And it's something we need to be aware of and understand that, real life is better than, there's a purpose behind creating worlds in our own minds. It's a chance to explore ourselves, work out problems, understand our higher self, communicate. So it serves a purpose, but it's not supposed to be abused. It's not supposed to be like the holodeck from Star Trek. Imagine holodeck addiction. I think that was something Star Trek explored at one point. Though they are recognizably themselves, life in the higher astral, where spirits free of comforting hallucinations tend to reside, is more vivid and intense than Earth, not more ghostly. Well, let's back up. When we talk about free of comforting hallucinations, what is meant by that exactly? So these lucid dream states I would describe as being hallucination type states. The astral Earth is not a comforting hallucination, and we can't conflate those things together because sometimes I hear a very condescending tone proposed about the astral side, saying that this is just this is still people clinging to materiality, or you get that Buddhist East religious perspective, which I think is quite flawed, where they look down on people because they're enjoying food or a cup of tea, or they're working jobs that were similar to here, but they don't see the main point I always drive home is that we want contrasting experiences, we want adventure, and just because something isn't high, exalted, and mighty in higher consciousness doesn't mean that it's somehow useless or pointless, or it's a hallucination, or something we have to do away with. So I think we should put that aside and not implicitly state that. But if it says where spirits free of comforting hallucinations tend to reside, I would agree on the topic of the hallucination, the lucid dream state, where it's like, well, let's say somebody just wants to, I don't know, be surrounded by beautiful women all day feeding him grapes, and so you create all these thought forms in a subjective dream world where you're the king, the king of nothing, because the population is just yourself, and you're hooking up with all these harem girls, but really it's just masturbation because those girls are just yourself. That's a really immature existence, and at some point you need to wake up to that and go on to the real astral. So it wouldn't necessarily be the higher astral, it could be the astral earth, or it could be a higher realm. And they often describe their world as much more real than ours. Ours is the copy of theirs, not the other way around. Same can be said for the astral version of Earth. That's basically what that is describing, that astral Tokyo, we could argue, is the real Tokyo. Earth Tokyo, what is Earth Tokyo? It's a imitation, basically. They can move from place to place from willing their destination, or they can walk if they want to. Their minds are sharper, their emotions are more acutely felt, both positive and negative. They see and hear as before, but in a more intense way. On the other hand, they may be no wiser or morally better than they were before, and they are far from omniscient. They don't get the answers to all the questions. Well, point 8 is basically just a rehash of the same points listed. We're just talking about the astral world. I tend to shy away from prescribing like higher and lower right away to different conditions. That description could perfectly describe places I've been to in astral experiences. So it's just kind of a rehash. Almost done. Point 9. Some spirits describe a phenomenon known as the Akashic or etheric records. These records contain the history of the places that you cling to. Cling to is a strange word. Spirit of David Patterson Hatch gives an example. I have been in Constantinople and have stood on the spirit side in the very room where I once had a remarkable experience hundreds of years ago. I have seen the walls, touched them, read the etheric records of their history and my own history and connection, yada yada. So basically all of reality is recorded, and you can kind of go into a virtual reality holographic environment based upon the natural records of time and relive places, although you'll kind of be a ghost. So, but you can basically look at snapshots recorded in history, recorded in time by doing this. And so, absolutely. Okay, point 10. So I'm going to wrap the video up at this point because, again, this is an epic article. This has got to be one of the best summary analyses of the afterlife, so I highly recommend checking this out for yourself. But at this pace, it's going to take me 5 videos to get through all of this. But that's okay because I'm not going anywhere. The channel's not going anywhere, so that works out. Okay, because the experience is heightened, pain as well as pleasure is intensified, and sometimes pain is more acute. Wow, this is some controversial stuff. It comes from an awakened awareness of all the pain inflicted on others by one's cruel or insensitive actions. Okay, so they don't mean physical pain, they mean like emotional pain, which are now experienced as one's own. If on earth, Myers says, some other man or woman was your enemy and you hated one another bitterly, you will encounter this man or woman on this luminiferous plane. The old emotional memory will awaken when you meet. It is not surprising that spirits urge us again and again to seek and offer forgiveness before we die, not wait until after. Totally agree, though. Again, in the New Age sphere, you will get people saying, there's no negative emotions when you die. It's all pure positivity. Hitler and his victims are all together in heaven in pure harmony. Why? Because that kind of garbage sells books to people with bubblegum brains who are afraid of emotional responsibility, and they want to get away from that. Same with the whole concept of just merging with God and disappearing when you die. Again, people afraid of themselves, afraid of emotional responsibility, and afraid of retribution, because if they've been a prick their whole lives, then they don't like the idea of having to die and having to be face to face with that. They want to just avoid all of that and avoid cosmic responsibility. So all the time, this concept in the modern New Age disinformation world is being countered or attacked, whereas this is the reality of it, and you can learn about this from reading near-death experiences, life reviews, unbelievable amounts of like emotional connection to things you've done in your life, connecting you to the consequences energetically, because emotions are just energy. It's energetic ebbs and flows of existence, right? So it's not just the chemicals in the brain. Emotions are existence, and it's why I tend to disagree again with certain Buddhist principles that the key to enlightenment is having no emotions or transcending beyond emotions. And I don't think we can necessarily do that at any point, because emotions are tied in to existence itself, unless you just want to end up becoming like the Borg or something. I, for one, am a big fan of emotions, but you just have to learn to stay in control of those emotions. I think that's what self-development or spiritual development work is about, is not allowing emotions to control you, but for you to recognize what emotions are from a little bit of a higher vantage point, and not being taken control by them, like a marionette doll, with sadness, anger, whatever it might be, insecurity, pleasure, desire, whatever, just controlling your body around, moving it around for you. I think in life we have to learn maybe meditation, in a sense, that's what I think proper Buddhism is trying to point out. But then some people roll with that in the wrong direction, and they think that we need to become emotionless robots, and that's the key to reaching some higher state of existence, which I don't like to do with that. Anyway, a lot to go over. I'm only at 10 points in. I'll have to do future videos about this. To the person who has requested this video, I hope that was satisfactory for now. But stay tuned. Like I said, I'll do more on this subject, more on this compendium, on this huge article, and yeah, I hope you like this. So again, if you like these subjects, if you think it's important, then you can support the work at afterlifetopics.com. You can pick up a book like Understanding Life After Death. You could, again, become a patron. This channel had rejected monetization by YouTube. They don't like the subject. They don't like us talking about non-materialist subjects, most likely. They think advertisers won't like that, so I can't get monetized. So I'm kind of relying on you guys. If you want to help out with that, it's patreon.com/afterlife topics. And you can always join the Facebook group as well. All right, I gotta go get a drink of water. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.